Welcome to this explainer. You know, we've literally all been there. You spend hours rendering perfectly blistered, golden, crispy pork belly, only to toss it into a wok and watch it turn into a soggy, chewy disaster. It's heartbreaking, right? Well, today we're mastering the culinary science behind why this happens, and specifically, 3 structural techniques to stop that tragedy forever. We're going to fundamentally change how you approach your stir-fry.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Why does crispy pork almost always lose its crunch in a stir-fry? It's a universal frustration for home cooks everywhere. Think about it. You've got this beautiful protein, the skin is perfectly rendered, creating that magical, airy crunch. But the very second it meets the wet environment of a wok, we're talking steaming vegetables, liquid sauces, dropping temperatures, that crunch is instantly under attack. The crackling literally absorbs the liquid, the structure collapses, and suddenly, no way around it, you're just eating wet pork. Understanding why this happens is the first step to preventing it, and the source material we're looking at provides a brilliantly straightforward methodology for protecting that texture.
To fix this, we're going to follow a highly effective rule of 3. First, Technique 1, skin prep. Then, Technique 2, moisture control. Next, Technique 3, pre-seasoning. And finally, we'll bring it all together with the high-heat finish.
Let's move to Technique 1, skin prep, and see how this builds the absolute foundation of the dish.
Because honestly, a perfect stir-fry starts long before the ingredients even hit the heat. To build an unshakable foundation of crispiness, our source highlights 2 non-negotiable prep steps. Step 1, boil the pork belly. This cooks the meat and softens up the skin. Step 2, aggressively pierce the skin thoroughly. Seriously, do not skip this. You're basically creating tiny escape routes for the fat to render out and pathways for the heat to penetrate and puff up the skin like a sponge. Without these microscopic holes, the skin just becomes hard and dense, definitely not light and crispy.
All right, moving right along to Technique 2, moisture control. This is all about drying out the skin.
I cannot emphasize this enough. Moisture is the absolute, undisputed enemy of a good crunch. If your pork skin is waterlogged when you try to crisp it up, it's just going to steam. We have to dry it out first. And this brilliantly illustrates the point. Our source shares this hilarious yet super practical anecdote about trying to dry the meat outdoors, saying, "I didn't sun-dry it because there are too many stray dogs outside. They would steal my crispy pork." It's a funny detail, for sure, but it perfectly highlights how we kind of have to adapt culinary science to our actual living environments.
So, let's look at the alternatives here. You've got outdoor sun-drying, which is obviously highly effective, but, as we just learned, clearly comes with the risk of local neighborhood dogs running off with your dinner. Versus indoor air drying, maybe with a fan, or using an oven on a very low temperature. Safe and controlled. But you know, the underlying culinary goal here remains exactly the same regardless of your environment. You are safely and effectively extracting moisture from the skin. The drier that skin is before you crisp it, the more resilient the crunch will be when it eventually faces the wok.
Now for Technique 3, the pre-seasoning strategy. This is an absolute game changer for speed.
Seriously, if you take only one thing away from this explainer, let it be this. Fast-cooking greens demand fast seasoning. Speed will save your crispy pork. When you're making a dish with fast-cooking greens, things like Chinese broccoli, chayote shoots, or water spinach, you're literally dealing with seconds, not minutes. You do not have the luxury of standing over a hot pan, opening bottles one by one, while your vegetables overcook and release all their water.
So to solve this timing issue, our source recommends building your entire flavor profile before you even turn on the stove. Here is the exact, beautifully balanced sauce component list they use. You've got oyster sauce for deep umami, light soy sauce for saltiness, soybean paste for a fermented, savory kick, a touch of sugar to balance that salt, and a quick splash of water, maybe used to rinse out the mortar where you just crushed your garlic and chilies. The source also mentions an optional flavor powder or bouillon. They use it because they have no dietary issues with it, but they're very clear. If you have sensitivities, just omit it. It's totally optional. Make it safe and delicious for you.
So the crucial point is this. If you season right in the pan, adding sauces one by one, the pan temperature absolutely plummets. The vegetables steam, they release liquid, and suddenly your crispy pork is taking a bath in a lukewarm soup. It's a disaster. But by pre-seasoning, literally dumping your mixed sauces directly onto the raw vegetables on your prep plate, you enable an immediate flash fry. Everything hits the wok at once, which prevents that puddle of liquid and completely rescues the pork's crunch.
Okay, let's bring it all home with the high-heat finish.
This is where all of your careful skin prep, moisture control, and strategic pre-seasoning finally come together. But right before we fire up the wok, we have to talk about the cooking medium. Our source strongly prefers pork lard. For those unfamiliar, pork lard is simply rendered pig fat used as a cooking oil,
and it is the secret behind an intensely fragrant stir-fry. When you use lard, it brings this incredible, rich aroma and a heavy, satisfying crackle to the kitchen that standard vegetable oil just cannot replicate. It coats the ingredients beautifully and handles high heat like an absolute champion.
Now, what's really interesting about this process is just how incredibly fast his final execution is. Step 1, heat that lard until it is fiercely smoking hot. Step 2, toss in your pre-seasoned greens and your crispy pork all at once. And Step 3, flash fry immediately. The liquids instantly caramelize and coat the ingredients rather than pooling at the bottom of the wok. This high-speed collision locks in those sweet, salty, and spicy flavors in a matter of seconds, ensuring your pork stays remarkably crispy.
It really is a masterclass in wok physics and time management. And the beauty of this pre-seasoning logic is that it doesn't just stop at Chinese broccoli. Think about a classic holy basil stir-fry or pad kaprao. You want that exact same dry, intense heat without boiling your ingredients. By mixing your sauces beforehand, you control the moisture and you control the clock. So I'll leave you with this to ponder. What other fast-cooking dishes in your own kitchen could dramatically benefit from this pre-seasoning technique to preserve their crunch? I challenge you to test this out the next time you cook. Thanks so much for joining me today, and as always, keep learning.